Good morning, my name is Specialist Dale. Today we'll be doing individual training on identifying terrain features according to 071-COM-1001. The task, condition, and standard for today will be starting off with the task, identifying the 5 terrain features on a military map, identifying the minor terrain features, also identifying the supplementary terrain features. The conditions are you are a member of a squad or a team in a field environment and have been directed to identify the features on a map. You have been given a 1 to 50,000 scale military map. The standard for today is identify the 5 major, 3 minor, and 2 supplementary terrain features on a military map. Classification for this class is unclassified, for official use only. Also, the risk assessment for today is low. Be sure to make sure you're hydrated. Watch out for any trips or falls. If it's a natural disaster, try to get somewhere where you don't have any windows or something like that. Call the rifle authorities. If you have an active shooter, run, duck, hide, and do the same. Call the active authorities. Like I said, the risk is very low, so I'm not gonna get too much into it. Next slide. This right here is an example of the map. This map is on your desk for training purposes, so you can practice and also identify some of those features as I go through them. Please do not draw on these. All right, starting off, we're going to talk about the 5 major terrain features. Starting off with hill. Next slide. All right, this is what a hill looks like on a map. Military map, this is what a hill looks like as far as face-to-face, one-on-one, in person. A hill is a high ground, is very self-explanatory. Next slide. This right here is a saddle. A saddle is a dip or low point between 2 areas of high or low ground. I apologize, 2 areas of high ground. A good way to remember how this looks is an hourglass, but my example would be this right here looks kind of like a saddle on a horse. So if you ever see this, just think of a saddle on a horse, and that's how you can identify it. Next one. All right, next slide, we have valley. Valley is stretched out groove in the land, usually formed by streams or rivers. Begins with high ground on 3 sides and usually has water running through it. Contour lines are typically U-shaped or V-shaped, and to determine which way the water is flowing, the closed end of the U or the V shape always points upstream or towards high ground. This picture is kind of blurry, but if you go to the next slide, this right here is kind of what it looks like. Well, this is exactly what it would look like on a military map. These lines right here are kind of an example of the water flowing. And here goes your U and your V-shaped lines. And that's also another example of what it looks like as well. Next slide. All right, the next one we're going to talk about is a ridge. A ridge is a sloping line of high ground. This picture looks much like the hill, but it's this particular part of the hill that we're talking about. That's the ridge. Next slide. The next one we're going to talk about is depression, a low point in the ground or a sinkhole. A good example of this is if you're, say, maybe somewhere where it's snowing, and you step on the snow and you pick your foot up, you're going to leave an impression on the floor, and that is an example of what a depression is. Also, these tick marks going inside show that the ground is getting lower from high ground. Next slide. The next one we're going to do is identify the 3 minor terrain features. Next. All right, the first one we're going to talk about is a draw. A draw is a stream course that is less developed than a valley. No level ground, considered to be initial formation of a valley. A good thing to pay attention to right here is these lines right here. That's kind of the way you're gonna be able to tell that this is a draw. As they said, a valley is somewhat what a draw is, but a draw is a lot smaller. It's kind of just like a little bit of a string going through the woods. Next slide. All right, the next one we're gonna talk about is a spur. A spur is a short, continuous sloping line of higher ground, normally coming from a side of a ridge, formed by 2 almost parallel streams. ground slopes down in 3 directions and ends up in 1. Pay attention to these very thin lines, V-shaped lines right here. That's kind of how you're going to identify it. Here's an image of what it will look like in person. It's kind of like the side of a mountain. It looks like maybe you could walk up it, maybe you can't, but it's very rigidly, very spurry, I guess you could say. Next slide. All right, this one we're going to talk about is a cliff. Cliff is a vertical or near vertical feature, abrupt change of land. This is an example of what it would may look like on a map, and this is another example of what it could look like on a map. As you know, a cliff is basically a complete drop off of the land. You're no way of getting down. You're 100% going to, have to go another direction. It's a complete drop off of the land. Next slide. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is the 2 supplementary terrain features. Next. First one we're going to talk about is a cut. This is an example of a cut going through a mountain. One of the examples they use for it is a railroad. Whenever you're getting to a point where the railroad must go through mountains or anything that's hard or not necessarily allowing you to have a straight path, that is a cut. They're shown by these lines going inwards, not out, inwards. That's a cut. Next slide. Next slide, we're going to talk about fill. A fill is also, the example used also is a railroad, but if you can go back to the next slide, the last slide. This is a fill. The tick marks are going out. So an example of a fill would be, let's say right before you get to that hill, instead of cutting through a hill, maybe putting a whole bunch of dirt or anything to make it level up to the same height as the hill. That would be a fill. Next slide. All right. At this time, I want everybody to read over their notes, everything that you practice. I want you to try to apply it in the next 5 to 10 minutes, talk to your peers, and you guys go ahead and just take this time and do a little studying. All right. Everybody go ahead and put up your notes, prepare for this assessment. I'm hoping everybody got I'm hoping everybody got a good understanding of everything before we start. What I'm going to have everybody do is they're going to come up here and identify the terrain features on this map, on this board. I'm going to have you come up individually, do this one at a time. Anybody who fails to get a go will be retrained at 0800 tomorrow. Also, before that retraining, you will be, as you were. Once you get that retraining, you will be retested. All right, first person, go ahead and go up, and we'll continue to do that until it's completed. All right, that concludes the end of the assessment. Everybody turn in your papers. I'm gonna take some time to go ahead and grade them. Like I said, anybody with a no-go, you retrain tomorrow. 1 second. All right, everybody's good to go. Everybody got to go. I've already communicated this with my leadership, and that's going to be the end of this course for today. Make sure everybody returns any equipment that I may have given you as far as pencils, maps, so on and so forth. At this time, I now will conduct the AAR. What we'll talk about is what was supposed to happen. What was supposed to happen today was we were supposed to talk about the 5 major terrain features as well as the minor and the supplementary. We did that successfully, in my opinion. Some of the things that went right. Some of the things that went right is I successfully was able to relay the information that I have for you guys to take the assessment on. It seems like you guys took it in very well. And some of the things that went wrong, I recognize that some of these slides had not the best picture, so I wish I could have did better for that, but next time I will improve on that. And what can we do to fix it? Like I said, I can definitely start looking up into the internet, or even maybe draw up my own designs of what some of these things look like, and also have better examples. And last but not least, do we have any final questions? All right, this concludes this training. Everyone have a great day.